replace the role of the fashion designer? Well, the short answer is no. Well, at least definitely not for now, and hopefully not ever. So many people assume that the role of the designer can be replaced with AI. The truth is, there are many steps involved in the design process, and ideation is just a very small part of it. A sketch on a paper or a rendered image is not the full picture. AI can be a useful tool in the ideation process or brainstorming, but still, the idea has to come from a human being and a well-crafted prompt. And I am also not an expert in the subject. Let's just put it out there. I did look into it a little bit, and I do use AI for other parts of my life, and I actually do find it useful. AI should be considered as a tool, as a helping tool, and so it could help some aspects of fashion design, as I mentioned, brainstorming ideas or visualizing sketches. There are actually amazing websites, apps out there now that, you can just put your sketch in there and it's gonna realistically visualize it for you, which can save a lot of time because a sketch is very far from the real thing. And so you could have like at least a vague idea of how something would look, which I think is quite useful. But that's not design. Anyway, we are not going to go into all these details in this video. Today, we are just here to have fun, as always. So, in this video, we are playing around this idea of asking AI to generate an idea, or rather a concept, for my next creation, based on the prompts that I've given to AI to generate an image. So as you can see from the image, we are making a pink ball gown with some light bubble draping, or something like that. The dress feels very, light and flowy. So that's the direction we are going to take. So when I looked at the image, I'm like, this looks like a chiffon gown. So I started looking into chiffons, and then I came across a fabric that I actually really liked. I just love the way it drapes. Like, I think it's quite beautiful, and it's got like a sort of like a sheen to it that is like shimmery, like I don't know if you can see it. And also it's just quite beautiful when it's gathered. It does like beautiful folds, and so I'm like, okay, this is the fabric we're gonna use. So I said, so I was like, look, AI, I know you generated this beautiful chiffon gown, but we are not going to use this blonde chiffon because I think this fabric is going to be a lot more interesting. And then AI was like, yeah, sure, do whatever you want, I think I like this fabric as well. That's what AI said, sure. By the way, there was a bit of an obstacle with this fabric, but well, you're going to find out later in the video. Well, AI didn't do a very good job in terms of details, like I don't have a back. I don't have the rest of the gown. I have this posed image. So I'm just going to take the design with a pinch of salt. Obviously, I will try my best to, to recreate the feel of this image. And I hope you guys going to like it. Okay. And as usual, I'm working on my half-scale dummy. And if you're new here, my name is Henny and this is Studio Henny's. All right, let's make a gown. So I started off with positioning my grain line along the center front and securing it with a few pins. Then I moved to the side, making sure that my grain line is aligned and I'm not pulling too much. I secured it with pins and then slowly started cutting away excess. And then I started creating the underbust darts, again securing it with a few pins. And also just smoothing the fabric and creating some overbust darts as well. Once it was done, I was ready to mark my side seams and also the waistline and the overbust shaping. And also where I want the hem to finish. And then I snipped into the fabric just to release some tension and also cut some excess away. Then I moved to the back, same thing, align the grain line along the center back, smoothing the fabric to the side and securing it with a few pins and creating some darts from the excess fabric. Then again, just cutting some excess away. I secured the darts with a few pins and just marking the side seams again, and the hemline and the center back, and also the neckline of the bustier, and also just marking some darts, and also just snipping into the fabric just to release some tension and cutting some excess away. And I forgot to mark the darts on the front, so that's what I'm doing here now. And just matching the waistline. That's going to be my reference line for the rest of the pattern. And I'm taking it off, and this is how it looks when it's done. And also, let's not forget to put some annotations on it. And the same with the front, just taking it off, and this is how it looks. Then I started to prepare the petticoat for the dress, and I purchased this quite handy corsetry boning case just to speed up my process. However, I have to admit that the way I'm making this petticoat is not very time efficient, but I was feeling very cozy that day, and I just found it really relaxing to slowly build this petticoat cage. So I just started to, you know, pin strips of this boning case onto the dummy, and just trying to figure out, you know, the length of the petticoat, and also the spacing between these strips, and then eventually, you know, just the circumference of it. So first I was building up all the separate strips on the dummy, and then I started to fill it with the boning that I had. The boning was a little bit wider than the casing, so I had to make it a little bit more narrow, just so it can fit into the case. And step one is done, and I realize this looks like an art installation right now, but trust the process. And as you could see, it was quite curly, so I needed to press it a little bit with the iron. And excuse my very old ironing board. Well, it's not an ironing board, right? It's for, like, you know, sleeves and armholes, etc. I have it for a very long time, and it's quite handy when it's like just a small project like this, and I can just put it on my desk. I'm just measuring the space between the strips, so I can just figure out the circumference of the petticoat. And again, I've done this in a quite slow way, as I mentioned before, because of my coziness that day. I could have just do the math, I could have just done one strip, figure out the circumference, divide it by whatever, and, just move on with our lives. But where is the fun in that? Anyway, once I had it, I just cut a little bit of excess off because it was a bit too long. And when I was quite happy with it, I moved on to the next ear, and just the same process all over again, filling it with the boning and just putting it above the previous ear and just pinning it into position. And then once I was happy, I started hand stitching. Yeah, the whole petticoat is hand stitched. I just stitched the corners to secure it into position, and just built another tier on the top. And again, just hand stitching it. And the waist is going to get sealed with the same boning case, except I'm not putting any boning in there. But I think it's a nice finish. The whole strip of boning case is finished beautifully, so I don't need to do anything. I just sealed the back, and I made it double layer, and I hand stitched it. And you know, like I could have machine stitched it, I could have done it, but I don't know, I was feeling like building with my hands and hand stitching that day. So here it is. That's what you can see I'm doing, but please feel free to machine stitch something like this. And the center back is open, so I can take it off, as you can see. Later, this is gonna get hand stitched onto the bustier that we are going to create, but it still needs a few other parts before we do that. So a quite annoying thing happened. I was gonna just play around with the fabric that I got to see how I'm going to take the next step, you know, just wanted to see what I'm doing. And then I noticed that the color is wrong. They sent me the wrong fabric. Anyway, I got in touch with the seller, but they're not replying, so that's a good start. So what I did now, I just ordered a different shade that I think it's because they actually don't have the one that I wanted in stock, because I checked the website, it's not in stock anymore. So yay, probably that's why they sent me the wrong fabric. That's my suspicion anyway. Anyway, I ordered a different shade, but it's still better than the shade that I actually got now. So this is the shade I got, which is a quite dark pink. It's not, I don't know if you can see, it's quite a subtle difference, but I can see how much lighter this is, and I need a lighter shade of pink. So I ordered one that is even lighter than this, but I think it's still gonna be better than this. Anyway, it's not gonna go wasted, trust me. I'm gonna use this for something else. I'm just gonna get inspired by the fabric and do something else with this fabric. But for now, I ordered a new color, so I need to wait a couple of days. I mean, for you, that's gonna be 1 minute. Anyway, we still got a lot to do before I even get to use the fabric. So let's just get back to it. So there are several ways to make an underskirt, but the most important thing is that it serves the purpose that you want to achieve. So right now, I just want to make it look like the finished dress. I just want to make it look like it floats. So I'm just going to have a layer of organza, and it's just going to get gathered at the waist and just going to get attached at the waist. So right now I'm just trying to see how much fabric I need. And once I had that amount, I just started to gather the fabric at the waist. And once it's gathered, I also, secure it with a stitch. And I'm also gonna have just like a zigzag stitch to kind of seal it in that area. So essentially I'm trying to create like a bubble hem as well. So the organza layer right now, it's gonna be longer than the hem. And then later I'm just going to determine how long it should be. So I left it quite long, but later this is gonna get tucked in, hugging the hem of the petticoat cage. And it's gonna get attached to the inner skirt. So once I had the underskirt ready, I started to trace the bodice parts that we draped in the beginning of the video, and just making sure that I just smooth the lines as I'm tracing, and that I transfer all necessary points, such as the waistline, which is going to be my reference point when I'm going to walk the patterns to check that the seams are matching, and also that I mark the annotations and grain lines. And here you can see me walking the pattern, starting at the waist point and just adding some notches. As you can see that my overbust, the neckline is not actually matching, so I'm just correcting that on the pattern paper. I'm gonna still mock this up to check the fit of this bustier. And doing the same thing with the back. Again, it was not matching perfectly, so I need to correct that. And then once it was done, I'm just adding some seam allowance. So once I had the pattern, I was ready to quickly mock it up. I just used the pieces of calico to cut it out and then quickly, stitch it and just try it on the dummy and just fix any issues if there are. So making sure that my seams are pressed correctly. I usually use a tailor's hem, especially for bust shaping and darts. Right, so do you remember this skirt? I hope so. So we're gonna need to create a bubble hem, and for this I'm gonna need an underskirt. It's going to be like a very simple A-line skirt, so I'm not going to drape it, I'm just going to create the pattern. So I matched my bodice at the hem of the bodice, and then I'm just going to create a skirt shape, an A-line skirt shape, directly coming from that seam line, as you can see. So it's nothing fancy, just marking the line where it's going to get attached, and also just some notches, and just coming into an A-line shape and just add seam allowance and notches and things like that, And then you're gonna have a skirt attaching to this bodice. After mocking up the bodice, it only needed a small alteration. So I was ready to start cutting the pieces out. So the outer layer is actually fused, just a regular fusing. And we're just gonna have a facing where the bonings are gonna get attached. And I'm just gonna do it in a very simple way. So I don't spend much time on it because it doesn't, it's a half scale, it doesn't need that much support. So here you can see me just measuring out my bonings that are going to get attached to the bustier facing. And then I proceeded to cut the underskirt, the A-line skirt that we just created the pattern for, which is also going to be in the same organza. And I just attached it, with a French seam on the side, and just attached it to the bustier. And now we are ready to assemble it all and just attach it to the outer underskirt. And basically the outer skirt hem is going to get gathered into the circumference of the inner skirt. And so it's going to just pull it inside, but still going to have quite a bit of volume around the hem so that it creates a bubble hem that I'm going to need for the draping. and here it is. And it's just gonna need to get hand stitched onto the bustier. So I was planning to drape the actual outer layer, and for that I needed to, you know, have a think. So I just grabbed the fabric. Oh, and by the way, guys, I got the fabric. I got the lighter color, as you can see. The seller also replied in the end, so that was good. Anyway, I grabbed the fabric and just sort of started to play around with the fabric just to see what the fabric wants and you know, what length I need to actually drape this. So you always need to, you know, introduce yourself to the fabric, you know, hey, what is it you want to do? Show me. That's how I approach it. I need to kind of, you know, see what the fabric wants, because that's what's gonna make it quite beautiful when you actually work with the fabric. Right, so I had a little bit of an experiment, as you know, and I cut the length that I need for 1/2 of the skirt. Hopefully it's good. And the next step I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to gather this part of the fabric to fit the waist, and then I'm going to gather the other end of the fabric to fit the inner skirt, so I can create this like sort of like a bubble hem. And then once it's attached, then I'm going to start draping the other parts that I want to do. Yeah, it's, you see, like, it's always good, you know, to, even if it's like an experimental or spontaneous draping, just still, you know, sometimes it's good to have a little bit of a planning, so how you're gonna do it, because even though there is no pattern involved right now, but I still have like a plan how I'm going to approach it, because it needs to, you know, it still needs to kind of make sense. So okay, so let's see, I'm gonna do this, hopefully it's gonna work. And I'm going to drape the other half as well, similarly, and yeah, and then we move on to the top. For now, we're just gonna focus on the skirt part. Let's do it. So I proceeded to gather the fabric, as I mentioned. And guys, the weave of the fabric, it just wanted to be gathered. Like, look how beautiful it is. I didn't press, nothing. It's just how it is. I sealed it with some zigzag stitch so I can attach it to the inner skirt, as you can see. So here, this is how we're gonna have the bubble hem, and this is how it would float. So once it was attached, I was ready to create bubbles, more and more bubbles. I just intuitively, you know, grabbed the fabric here and there, and I started to pin it to this organza layer. And because the organza layer is so loose, it has such a nice movement to it. So I kept, you know, just grabbing pieces of fabric here and there and just started to like tuck it to that organza layer underneath. And obviously this is all gonna get hand stitched. And then I moved on to creating the bustier part. Again, because the fabric just really wanted to get gathered, I just started to create like these small tucks, pleats on the top edge of the bustier. And then I just ruched it on the waist as well, but leaving extra length of fabric because I wanted to like flow onto the skirt in like seamlessly almost. I will show you in a minute. Anyway, I started hand stitching onto the bustier in between those pleats. The fabric was quite nice to work with, so it would actually stay pleated with only with a few stitch in between those pleats. Now it's not even like I'm stitching in between every single pleat. And then the top edge is just gonna get tucked in on the bustier, and then later it would be sealed with maybe some piece of ribbon, so you would cover the stitches there. Anyways, you can see, so the reason why I left it longer, so I can actually create more bubbles that's coming from the bustier. And then the very edge of the fabric, I would just again gather it and then tuck it under, and so you don't need to like finish it. It's very nice. So that's how I imagine this. And there is like an area on the AI design that I really liked, how this sort of like there is like this curve on the bustier part. So I was trying to recreate that as much as possible. And it looks, obviously the dress itself looks quite different from the AI generated image, but also it's because of the fabric. But I'm just trying to capture the essence of that concept, what the AI generated. And yeah, so that area of the dress is quite nice. So again, it was just like a strip of fabric that I kind of twisted around and started, you know, pinning it here and there as it got pleated. But actually the bustier part is gonna get changed after this off camera. I changed it like 2 or 3 times, but the principle is the same. I was just never like entirely happy with it. And but you will see the final result regardless, don't worry. But it's the same principle, so you didn't miss anything. I was working the same way. It was just aesthetic, you know. I just was not always like, I was not happy, so I had to change a few things. Here is just another strip of fabric just to kind of seal it. So that's the way I was working the whole time, was trying to find a way how it looks nice and how I would like it to be, and how it would reflect the image the best, but also, you know, have my human touch to it.